Hi, welcome to the Let's Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Do you have construction needs? Maybe you need to get a pergola done. Maybe you need your roof done. Check out K&H Construction. Chris Helms, he's a local guy out of Waxahachie. He'll take care of you. Let him know DV LeBron sent you. Today, my very special guest is author and pastor, Mr. and teacher, Drew Allen Hall. How are you, sir?
I'm great, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I love great stories, and in your case, testimonies. I saw that you wrote books, keeping it real and tier one Christianity. And I said, you know what? Somebody who's writing books like that thinks about accountability, thinks about how God affects in life, and probably had God affect them in their life. And I wanted to have somebody on to talk about that. And that sounded perfect. You fit the bill. So thank you so much for coming on, my friend.
I appreciate it so much, man. Thank you.
I was listening to some of your stuff, and you said you were led to the Lord early. And you knew, hey, and one of the biggest calls that very few people get in their walk with Christ is, hey, you're going to be a pastor. Yeah. That's not a call everybody gets. That's just not a thing, but you knew early on. So tell me, let's talk about how you came to God and what he's done in your life.
Yeah, man, I'd love to. Growing up in Alabama, there's a Baptist church about every corner. You can throw one and throw a rock and hit it. And so, man, just growing up around church, my parents are believers, that they would take me to church. And I remember when I was little, went to Vacation Bible School and just heard Pastor Gary Rivers at East Gadsden Baptist Church just really explain heaven and hell, sin, and why without Jesus I'd be going to hell. And I knew, I was like, hey, that's me. I need somebody to save me. And I remember putting my faith in him, and I was young and really just like any young kid, you understand a little bit, but you don't understand all of it. And I kept following the Lord and really got to that full surrender point probably when I was 15. I was sitting at a youth camp, and we were sitting on the floor. It was like a Holiday Inn or something like that, like in the breakfast area. And the guy that was speaking to us, he was standing up, and we were all on the floor. And man, I just remember clear as day, just God speaking to my spirit and saying, hey, Drew, you do that. I made you to do that. And wrestled with that for about 6 months, and finally just surrendered to the Lord and said, okay, Lord, I'll preach. I'll do whatever you want me to do. And so I grew up as the teenage preacher. That was me. My friends were drinking and partying and doing things teenagers do, and I wasn't doing that. And so I was trying to live for the Lord. I wasn't perfect by any means, but just trying to take those steps, and thought I was going into ministry full time. That was my plan, and God had a different route for me. I went and did 2 years at JUCO, and then I was going to go to college at the University of Alabama. And my old youth pastor called me and asked me if I still loved baseball. I grew up playing baseball and basketball, and I said, yeah, man, I miss it. I love it. And he said, well, I'm really good friends with the coach at Jacksonville State. And he said, he needs a manager, and it'll help pay for college. Are you interested? And I just wanted to do anything I could to help my mom and dad out. And I had some friends at Jacksonville State. It was about 30 minutes from my house. I was already doing some FCA stuff up there. And so I prayed about it and decided to go up there. And so took a scholarship, went up there, and God really started opening up doors and leading me into coaching. And man, wow. So I did the baseball thing for a year. I actually got to do a devotion that year with the women's basketball team. And I talked with the coach there, and she really liked me. And she asked me how much the coach was paying me at baseball for my scholarship. And I told her, and she said, okay, I'm going to beat that if you come work for me next year.
Wow.
So I did that. And man,
do you think that God put you in, I know the answer to this, but I want to hear how you saw it. Do you think that he puts you, because you had this whole plan, and do you think that he put you where his word was needed the most?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just growing me. and really just so much where he could put me where he would use me, number one, but also where I needed to be to grow up. Because I got out of baseball and started working women's basketball. Thought I was going to be the next John Wooden. Man, I was going to win championships and tell people about Jesus, man. That was my path. That's what I was going to do. And God just started taking me through some strange turns. I actually got out of women's basketball and started helping out in softball. And then really just felt God lead me there. I had no experience. I was a bullpen catcher my senior year at Jack State. And I asked Coach McGinnis, who is an amazing lady, God-fearing lady. And I said, hey, I think I want to try to get into college coaching. Is this something I can do? And she said, Drew, you just send out emails and I'll put me as a reference. And Coach Mandy at Sanford, which was in Birmingham, about an hour down the road, and she needed a GA. And man, this is how God works. Like she said, hey, Drew, I've got a full ride for you to a private Baptist university. And so I graduated in December and started with the softball team in January, and I got to work with them for 2 years, got my master's, man. It was awesome.
Wow. He seemed to put you in all the right places. What do you think, and this kind of a off the wall question a little bit, why do you think faith plays such a big part in sports? Because at any sporting events, matter of fact, I was reading today how Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey led the team in prayer and led the team in Bible studies. And that's what they do. They bring Jesus to the team, to my team. And I thought, this isn't the first time I've seen, there's been controversy. There's been so much about faith in sports. As someone who's lived that life of faith and sports, what do you think is the correlation there, and why does it work?
Man, I think a lot of it translates. Paul even talks about in his letters, he would reference running and athletics and things like that. But I think there's a lot of things that correlate between being very disciplined. You've got to be disciplined to be a follower of Jesus. But also you have to understand failure. And man, anybody in athletics, you're going to understand failure because nobody's ever been perfect the whole way. And so I think when you see that and, hey, I'm going to fail, and it's about what you do next, I think that really helps you understand God's grace, because we've all messed up. The Bible says for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And man, so, what do we do next? Because you can never not messed up. You know what I mean? So we need that next step. And the Bible teaches us that next step is Jesus, that he lived the life that we couldn't. And so by putting our faith in him, we get to go take our next step with him. And it's not us living up trying to be perfect, but it's us walking with him who is perfect. And that's team atmosphere. There's a lot I could go in with that. So.
It does play such a role. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it. Now, have you had because every Christian in their walk, I believe that they have that moment, that Jonah moment is what I call them, the Jonah moments. And I've had them. Nah, I'm not doing that. No way. And it usually didn't end well. And so when did you have those Jonah moments, or one that you could really remember?
Oh man, I had one for 10 years. It was a 10-year long.
That's a long Jonah moment.
And it was like, man, I got into coaching and I wanted, being in athletics, you're hyper competitive. You want to win and you want to be the guy. You want to be the best. And so I was going into it for the right reasons. I was trying to use it as a platform, but somewhere along the way, it got from that was my platform to share Jesus, to sharing Jesus was just something that I did, if that makes sense.
Oh.
And man, I was chasing pride, to be honest with you, for about 10 years, just wanting to win championships and wanting to be the very best I could. And man, led me to a very empty place. And God had to humble me and remind me that's not what he made me for. And I was successful. I had some ups and downs like any coaching career. You got fired and all the stuff, but man, I was a state coach of the year in Alabama. I mean, like I said, like I was successful, but I just wasn't happy. And it took me going back, just accepting that call to be a pastor, to minister, to preach. I had to fully surrender again and say, okay, God, whatever you want.
Did you go lukewarm in that time, would you say? Or was it not lukewarm, but maybe it wasn't as, it was more just the words?
Yeah. When we hear the word lukewarm in Revelation, Jesus wasn't saying that we basically just weren't useful. Lukewarm water is not useful. Hot water has good properties to it. Cold water has good properties to it. Lukewarm is not really good for anything. And I think that's where I was. I would say lukewarm. I was still following Jesus, but like I said, I got into pattern, and it was more not everything that I am, but just something that I did, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. It happens to many Christians where it's just part. One of the things that I noticed, and this is a weird example, but growing up, I grew up involved in gangs and involved in gangs in California, and there would be things that happened and they weren't good. And after that event, we'd be in the car driving off, and we'd pass a church, right? And we'd pass a Catholic church, and they would do the bingo, I call it, the cross on they would do that, right? And I would look at them, because I wasn't a Catholic. I just look at them like, we just did some seriously bad stuff. Did that just absolve you right there? But what I realized was that in that culture, it was a cultural Christianity. It was part of just what you did. It wasn't all of you. It was just part of you. It was just like you like chicken as part of your culture. You do the bingo sign when you see a Catholic church, and somehow, some way. Did you get into that, or you were always just a little bit deeper than that?
I would say I was a little deeper than that, but I would say that with me, it was chasing more my passion than chasing God's glory.
Ooh, yeah.
If that makes sense. I won't say that I completely was just going through the motions of, oh, it's time to go to church on Sunday and stuff like that. I was still reading my Bible, but I just wasn't as serious about it. And like I said, God had to humble me. And that's when I started writing the books.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, because it's not an easy thing to do, to write a book. I've been writing about 10 books for the last 10 years, and I haven't gotten past chapter 1. It's an awesome chapter. I got to give it to it. It's an awesome chapter, but it doesn't go past chapter 1. You went ahead and wrote 2 of them. So tell me that path that led you to writing books.
Yeah, man. It was 2020. I had just had me and my wife had just had our second daughter, who is a little fireball.
You better include her.
I'm about to say, yeah. I'm about to say, if you see a little redhead running behind me, that's Sadie. And so, anyways, we had just had her. My wife is a nurse, and she kept telling me that she doesn't feel good. And back in 2018, 2019, I had taken a part-time job at our church as the youth pastor. So I was coaching, teaching, and youth pastor at this point. And so COVID shut the world down. Sadie was born in February. The world shuts down in March. So, it's pretty cool, because we got a lot of time with her that normally I probably wouldn't have. But Gina just kept telling me that she didn't feel right. And I'm a teacher. I'm not a medical doctor. So all I can say is, hey, go to the doctor. And she did. And long story short, we found out that she had thyroid cancer. And so she's not even 30 at the time. I've got a 3.5, 4-year-old and a 6, 8-month-old. And if you've ever rode or been a part of a journey like that, you go to the doctor, they say, hey, it's probably not that bad. Let's do a test. You wait a week or a few days, you go back and you get the results, and it's worse than what they thought.
Yeah.
That was our story for a little while.
Wow.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. it, it goes from let's just check this to, oh my, this is actually bad. And you shake, you have this new family, you have this partner in life that God has given you, and we understand their gifts, but we're not trying to give those gifts up just yet.
Yep.
But so you're caught with this news. How does that move you?
Man, Gina came and picked me up from school to go get the test results. And so luckily she was driving. So we got back in the car, man. I was bawling my eyes out, just hands bawling.
Yeah.
I was so scared I was going to lose my best friend and raise these girls on my own. And she is a rock star. And she looks at me and she says, "Hey, you can't do that." And so she was right. And so, man, I said a prayer right then and said, "God, I need to be strong for her. Help me be strong." And I'm a history nerd. And man, I got drawn to special operations in my early 20s, just reading books and listening to podcasts. And that was just an interest. And the jumping out of helicopters and the missions and stuff, yeah, that's cool. I'm a guy. I'd be lying if I said, "Hey, that's not cool." But it was more the mindset that really drew me to that world. And so I tried to study it as much as I could. And when I said that prayer, God took me back to something I read in Mark Owen's book. And basically he talks about when he was rock climbing and he froze. He was a Navy SEAL. He was on the Bin Laden raid. And he said he froze up on the rock. And long story short, the instructor basically told him, like, "Hey man, you can look everywhere else, but it's not going to help you. You got to stay in your 3-foot world. Focus on what's 3 foot in front of your face, and you'll get to the top of this rock." And man, I tell you, God hit me with my heart with that. And he said, "Drew, stay in your 3-foot world. Trust me with the rest. You control what you can, and you trust me." And man, that's been our family motto: stay in your 3-foot world. And we root that in Isaiah 26:3. And that says, "He will keep you in perfect peace, whose mind is fixed on him." That's God will keep you in perfect peace when your mind is fixed on him. And man, that's what we did. That's what got us through it, was just staying in our 3-foot world. And so I thought it was going to be a sermon series. I had all this knowledge of stories and lessons. And one night about 11 o'clock, brother, man, God hit me in the heart and said, "Hey, Drew, I want you to write a book." And at that time, I reminded God of my English grades and how my spelling is horrible. And,
Right. Yeah, no,
so,
I got that problem. For me, my first language was Spanish, and my Spanish is terrible. My English is not any better, and so I'm in real trouble now. I'm in real trouble. So
man,
yeah, you get called on this book. He's this 3-foot world, which I love the focus. I love the focus, and it ties into the life that you've been living with the sports and stuff. I love the focus that he used that and put that kind of concept in your face, and using a secular book,
yeah.
just put that concept in your face. Your world needs to be me. As long as your world is me, everything is going to fall into place. I just think that's wonderful. So you just started writing this book.
So I had the idea. I wrote probably 6, 7 chapters. Had no idea what I was doing, had no clue about the publishing process or even how to go about the publishing process. I sent it to a few different companies, and one of them emailed me back. It was Christian Faith Publishing, and they're a partner publishing kind of deal, and they liked it. And they said, "Hey, Drew, we're interested. Finish it and send it to us." And that kind of gave me the oomph that I needed to finish it. And I did. I got it checked by as many people as I could, because I never served in the military. And man, I wanted to get it right. And so I used the stories and the lessons and the heroes of the special operations community as my illustrations to help share the gospel in that book. But its main focus was moving from average, was the journey of discipleship, moving from average to following Jesus with all that you have. Because Jesus said, "Hey, if you're going to come after me, you got to deny yourself and take up your cross." Man, guys in special operations, Green Berets, Navy SEALs, MARSOC, all those dudes, they average for them is the floor. But in Christianity today, if you're average, if you're showing up 2 out of 4 Sundays, man, we're going to put you on the leadership team. We may even vote you in as a deacon.
Okay. You're getting hard on this one. Ouch.
And so that's what was on my heart. That's what God put on me is, hey, if you're a follower of Jesus, average is the floor. And that's not what we're called to be. And so that's why I wrote the book. That was the whole purpose of it, to help people in that journey of discipleship. And it's not a shame. It's not a shaming you for not doing it, but man, it's an encouragement to, hey, keep going, keep stepping up, keep following, even when the world knocks you down, even when Satan knocks you down, man, you keep getting up. And so was the heart of the book. And so I wrote it. And that's when I decided to take a step back from being a head coach. Had the little kids doing the youth ministry, my wife with cancer and all the things. I had more fun writing the book than I did coaching. And that's when I knew it was time to really lean in and say, okay, God, it's all about you. How can I tell as many people as I possibly can about you? And so I did that, started focusing on it. And then a few years later, it was actually 2022, I got the idea for my second book, How to Keep It Real.
It sounds like you started with that concept in the first book. And so now you're going to make a whole book about it. And accountability is something that we're supposed to do for each other as Christians. We're supposed to hold each other accountable. You read some of the books in the Bible, and there were some tongue lashings there in the most Christian loving way that you could do, but still tongue lashing. And then the things like, for me, what always stuck was Revelation 2, where he says, I knew you not.
Yeah.
I knew you not is probably the scariest. And it still makes goosebumps pop in my arm. Because you could think you're doing it. You could think, but didn't I knew you not. Didn't I served on the worship team. I knew you not. I collected this. I knew you not. I knew you not. And so that kind of that sticks me. So when you talk about accountability, that's normally the verse that comes to me when I think about that. But you decided to write another book 3 years later on accountability. Tell me about that in the title.
Yeah. So the title is How to Keep It Real. And it's moving from denial of Jesus to radically living for him. How do we do that? And man, it came from, I'm a nerd and a goofy teacher, if you can imagine that. Man, I've got traditions that I do with my kids. I've been doing them I've been teaching 13 years now. And so when my kids leave my classroom every day, every class, I tell them 3 things. I say, hey, I love y'all. And I think that's important because a lot of kids don't hear that. I want to make sure they hear it once that day. Hey, I love y'all. I say, see y'all. And I tell them, hey, keep it real in the streets. And man, you can imagine 7th through 12th grade, like they look at this dude and they go, who is this guy? And keep it real in the streets. But they smile and they laugh when they're walking out. So man, I think that's important. And that was just me trying to be goofy. And a few years ago, a kid for the first time ever looked at me and goes, what does that mean? Keep it real in the streets. And man, God hit me in the heart with the same feeling I had with the first book. And he took me to Peter's story, where Peter was the one who made the profession of him, where Jesus said, on this rock, I will build my church. And then the next paragraph, he tells Peter, hey, get behind me, Satan. On the night of Jesus' arrest, Peter says, hey, I'll go with you to death. I'm not going to abandon you. And he says, hey, tonight you're going to deny me. Yeah. And so it follows that story because I feel like that's what we do a lot. And man, what happens a lot of times is we mess up because we're human and we sin, and it's just part of it until Jesus comes back and makes everything right. But a lot of us, after we screw up, we know that God loves us. We know that God forgives us, but we don't think God can use us. And so we put ourselves on the sidelines. And that's what Peter was trying to do after Jesus came back until John 21, when he had that conversation with him on the beach where Jesus asked him 3 times, Peter, do you love me? Okay, great. Go feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? Take care of my sheep. And we read that like our parents are talking to us, like, do you love me? Oh, really? Because you didn't do this before. And that's not what Jesus is talking about, man. What he's trying to do, get Peter to move from that sideline of shame to back to the mission and purpose that he was created for. And man, then just a few days later, a few chapters over, Peter standing in front of the people that he denied Jesus to, proclaiming him as, hey, it is by this name that you are saved, and no other name in heaven. So it's a really cool transformation, and all of it happened with a radical encounter with Jesus.
How does a Christian become ineffective? What is and because you're a pastor, and this is what is the fastest way for a Christian to become ineffective? Why does that happen in our walk? Because I imagine it happens to every Christian in their walk sometime or the other.
Yeah, I would say it's because we push aside the Great Commission. Jesus' last commandment before he ascended into heaven, he said, go and make disciples amongst all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then he even encourages us before that. At the end of that, he says, hey, and I'm going to be with you until the end of the age. So you're not doing this alone. But we push that aside, man. Telling people about Jesus, that's missionaries' jobs, and that's the pastor's job. It's not the regular church member's job. But Jesus wasn't just talking to pastors and missionaries, man. He was talking to all his followers. And we tell people all the time, like, man, if you go eat at a great restaurant, you're probably going to tell somebody about it. But if you go see a great movie, you're going to tell somebody about it. And we like to say, hey, we've put our faith in this guy that, hey, we were dead in our sin and now we're alive in him. But man, we won't mention his name to people.
Right.
I think that's how you've got to get to where you move on from that.
Do you ever wonder? No, I know, but when you're in conversations and you say God, it's okay. You said God, and maybe some people have some vitriol or something about it, but for the most part, it's bland. You say Jesus and ears stand up. Mm-hmm. They're like ears stand up. People either act in some kind of way. It gets attention as soon as you say that versus God, just God. Oh, God really has saved me. Okay. You say Jesus and all of a sudden it's and the power in that name and proclamation. Have you noticed that?
I've been in Alabama my whole life. And right. So it's the Bible Belt. So
I wasn't.
Yeah. So it's a little different, but I think a lot of people just throw that out there. Not in a bad way. I'm not saying that they're doing that. They just push it aside, but they forget the power in that name. And so that's something I think. And like I said, I'm not saying any of this to shame anybody. That's not the goal. And it's not ever the goal of anybody standing up on a pulpit or preaching is to shame anybody. It's just to tell the truth and try to encourage them that, hey, God has made them for a purpose. And we serve a gracious God. We serve a loving God, but we also serve a jealous God. And man, he is out for his glory. You know, and a lot of times people look at God like a genie, like, how can you help me? And it's the opposite way. It's, okay, God, this is about you. This whole thing has been a story of your goodness and your grace. And we get invited into that. So we need to be asking, God, how can I be a part of it?
Drew, tell me about a la carte Jesus, or my own personal Jesus in today's society. Talk to me about that, because I know you've seen it. I know if Jesus loves me, then he's okay with this and he's okay with that. And I believe in this, but not in that. Talk to me about how because this is what you're doing with the book and you're talking to people about God and you're a pastor. How do you get around those things?
I think you said it. People say, I believe this and I believe that, and I think this and I think that's a lot of you. And when I try to talk about Jesus, I talk about him and take my opinion out of it and point it to the Bible, point it to, who he says that he is. Because Drew Hall's opinion is not worth much. Man, I am just a 7th grade teacher from Alabama. But that book, man, that God gave us has been around for centuries, and people, way smarter people than me, have been trying to prove it wrong, and they can't.
Right.
And man, I think you point people to him and who he says he is, because I don't save anybody, man. You don't save anybody.
Nope.
It's the Holy Spirit. And so we just have to be willing to step up and say, all right, God, use me. And then, he is gracious and faithful enough to say, man, Drew, you screw it up and you're still a sinner. And yes, you're forgiven. And yes, you can mess things up at the drop of a hat, but I'm a good God and I'm perfect and I'm going to use you. And man, I think that's it.
I got saved on the back of the USS Peleliu. I was out in the South Pacific, and it was actually a guy I really despised. Now, the funny part, looking back at it now, I thought that he was coming back to my watch space to fight. That's how bad it was between me and him. I literally thought he was coming back there so me and him could throw fisticuffs. And when he shows up, I'm like, okay, I start sidewinding, getting myself ready to go.
Sorry.
And he bust out the King James.
Sorry, she's teaching.
It's okay. And he busts out the King James Bible. I'm like, what's he doing? And man, we sat there and talked for about 2 hours, and he led me to the Lord on the back of the USS Peleliu. And I became an independent fundamental Baptist and did that. Fell from that, especially after Iraq. I came back broken, and I didn't see him there, and he was there the whole time. He was the reason why I'm not dead. He was there, but I couldn't see that. I couldn't see him there. And I walked dark for so long. And about 9 years ago, I came back to him in the worst possible spot ever. A worst possible spot. I came back to him and I said, I would never, if you just save me, if you repair me, if you heal this broken heart, if you heal this broken marriage, if you heal all these things, Lord, I will never turn away from you again. I will keep walking. And you know what? I've been walking. Ever since then, I've been walking. Now, I can't tell you it's always, because sometimes I am not in the spirit like I need to be. But I keep walking. If I have to crawl, if I have to pull myself just by my hands and just a little bit, I am not stopping my walk towards him. And that's what I've chosen. Because before, if I wasn't all the way running and all the way in there, I would, oh, you don't really want to do this, and then turn away from him. So I said, you know what? I don't care if I'm pulling myself across the floor like this towards Jesus, then I'm doing that. But I'm going to keep going. And that's the way that my walk has gone with that. It's been a life changer, and it's been so inspiring. But I love these accountability things, because believe it or not, every Christian needs it. But you're talking about it and it's hitting me.
Yeah.
You know, where am I? And you haven't said nothing in a bad way. Why do you think that churches and just in general, some Christians and some Christian sects are getting away from accountability?
It's hard to preach. Got to do it in love, and you're going to step on toes, and it's hard, to be honest. And I think a lot of people, it's never something that you just really, if you could choose, hey, I'm going to preach the love of God, or I'm going to preach accountability and following him. Well, the easy one's the love of God, right? Like that's easy to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
The accountability part's hard. And I think it's hard because people ask hard questions. Like, man, yeah. I'm going to speak and you tell me if I'm wrong on this. You said you were in Iraq. And I think of a lot of our men and women that served that were over there, Iraq, Afghanistan, that saw all the things that I can't imagine. And it's hard when you see those things to think, okay, if I hear about the goodness of God, but in my mind, I know the bad things I've seen, how does that weigh out? And I
Oh,
think a lot of people struggle with that, man. And what I would say, when it's not just people that have seen combat, it's how does God allow sickness? How does God allow poverty? How does a good God allow all of these things? And the
uh-huh.
thing that you have to remember is that God didn't break it. We did.
Ooh, whoa.
And,
Yes.
and so we're living in a world broken by us. But man, this is the goodness of God, that he saw our brokenness and we screwed it up, and he's still perfect, and he's still holy, and he still has angels flying around him. Isaiah 6 says 24/7, 365, chanting to each other, holy is the Lord God Almighty. He has all that. He doesn't need us, but he wants us.
Mm-hmm.
And he sent his son to our broken planet to take on our sin so that we could be made right with him. And so, yes, we're going to see bad things. Yes, there's going to be war. Yes, there's hard things. And none of what I just said makes any of that go away. But the question is, how can a good God let this happen? It's number one, we broke it, but he's good enough to send us a way to fix it.
Yeah, it is that's probably the one of the biggest questions whether it be the military or the law enforcement career, and all the things that have happened in the last 32 years or 30 years that I've been part of this. The worst of the worst and worst in society, and you see these things, and the worst that you see in war. Where does a good God fit in this? That I love that how you frame that. Where does a good God fit in this? How is God good when this happens? And you didn't break it. That was, or he didn't break it. Is yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Man, I think a lot of people struggle with sobriety and drinking and pills and drugs and things like that, because the thing with God is he's a patient God, and he doesn't work on our time frame.
Nope.
So we ask God, hey, give us answers. Hey, God, give me peace. And sometimes that takes days and weeks and months and years. You can turn to the pill and you can turn to the bottle.
Oh, that'll give you instant, but
It's
you're
gonna give you
empty.
this. Now, it doesn't fix it. It doesn't go away,
Mm.
but at least it numbs you for a little bit. And I think that's why a lot of people turn to it instead of turning to the Lord.
It was the emptiest I've ever been. It
Yeah.
was the emptiest I've ever been. And no matter what I did, I couldn't fill the hole. I was trying to fill the hole that God was supposed to be in.
Yep.
And no matter how much I drank, no matter what pill I took, nothing was filling the void. And even if it filled it just for that night, the next day the void was bigger.
Yeah.
The void that I had a Grand Canyon in here. It was crazy. That's what God does. He completes us when we let him. He does. He completes us when we let him. But he will stand at the door and knock. He will. He will. My friend, how can my viewers best get a hold of you, find you? I'm scrolling your Instagram, and is that the best way?
Yeah, that's the best way. You can look me up on YouTube for some of my sermons, and you can just Google First Baptist Church, Hoax Bluff, Drew Hall, and my last ones that I've preached pop up on there. I put out a lot of little daily devotional videos, a minute to 3 minutes, on my Instagram account. It's got links to my books on there. They're on Amazon, so you can grab those there. But really, that's probably the best way. And that's why, man, like I said, I thank you for this, because the books and the videos and all the stuff that I put out there, man, it's just to tell people about Jesus, because I spent 10 years of my life chasing my pride. And man, I want to spend the rest of the time I got. We never know when that last second's coming, man. So I just want to spend it trying to tell people about Jesus, point my family to Jesus, and you really just make it all about him.
I'd love to have a show with you one day about why bad things happen to good people, because that's one of the biggest whys screamed throughout the life. And I know you've seen it as a pastor, and I've seen it in life. The most painful, guttural why is screamed by someone who is wondering why the worst things happen to good people. And I think that is probably a show that we could have in itself, my friend. I hope maybe we can do that in the future.
I hope so too, man. I'd love to.
All right, brother. Can you stick around after the show real quick?
Yeah, man. Yeah,
Thank
love
you.
to.